Back to the James Gaskets kit we go. We are after our intake little grommets, little circular doohickeys here. I am going to replace both of these. This one's kind of hard, and then the new one's nice and pliable. These little floating flanges, as you guys know. They'll orientate the way you need them as you install it. I wanted to kind of get them both started at first. It should make it easier when I go to install them on the actual heads. Just to kind of get a rough ballpark of where the orientation needs to be. That's that. I'm also going to use some Loctite on these. I noticed that these things were kind of, rumbling loose, vibrating loose. So I'm just going to throw, a drop or two on here. Not sure if it's recommended, but that's what I'm doing. I'll try it out and let you guys know if it works or not. I wonder why they don't use any Loctite on any of the head bolts. Seems like a logical idea. There's got to be a reason why they don't add Loctite onto there, but that might be an argument for another day. All right, let's expose our little intake ports here. Maybe do a little brake clean on a paper towel. Get these things cleaned up a bit. A little bit of dirt coming off. All right. Surface is cleaned. I'm gonna start feeding in the whole induction system now. Gonna start with the fuel line. Gonna feed that through first. Hopefully our little flanges and stuff will stay on as well. Make sure I do this the right way there, Jakey. Might be a little tricky. Grab the fuel line from my other side here. Careful for your connectors as well. You don't want to kind of put any stress on those things. Here's where our flanges are meeting up on this side. So I basically just kind of rotated the flange to the right angle. That way it lines up with the hole. So I'm going to get those two bolts started on this end and then try to get the other one started, which is going to be a little more difficult, but it is possible. We'll get it done. It's going to be a 1/2-inch bolt. I put like literally a drop of Loctite on here. I don't even know if you can even see it, but I'm not going to go overboard with that. Try to get a couple threads started. Not sure if you'll see anything, but I'm just going to get the other bolt started on the other flange now. Swing around to the other side. Kind of wiggle it around until you feel the hole. There's the last hole hiding right underneath. Definitely hard to get to, but not impossible. Just gotta be sneaky, come around, feel around, and get her in the hole. Just like that. Get our 1/2-inch wrench. Start tightening everything evenly. One bolt at a time. I hope that's right. Yeah, it's gotta be right there. Kind of weird how it floats there, but yeah, that's the way it goes. You are tightening these bolts right into aluminum, so just be mindful you don't over tighten and possibly strip out the holes. That would not be a good day for you or me or nobody ever. I don't have a torque wrench that would fit in all the different bolts. I'm just doing a little, doing my best judgment on the torque. To spec, it's about 8 to 12 foot-pounds or 96 to 144 inch-pounds. Those are the technical specs if you want to get this thing torqued down to factory quality. All right, we're actually kind of on the home stretch here. We're just going to get all of our connectors connected again. So I'm going to start with the T-map. Looks like I got the connector here. Basically just doing everything in the reverse order. It's a little tight, but you can get in there. Tricky, but not impossible. Even better if you have small fingers. Make sure everything lines up. Make sure everything's happy before you click it. Believe that should be good. There's your click. So we are locked and loaded on that one. Got to get the rest of our connectors free here. Zip tied them up out of the way so they're out of the way. Let's see which way this spaghetti goes here. Fuel injector plugs here. Throttle positioning sensor plugs in way down here. You can tell this is the longest lead here. Clicked in, locked and loaded. Time to fish our IAC connector back in there. Kind of a tight fit, but it does go in there. It does work. Okay, no satisfying click, but the tab did lock in to the top. Moving on. We have our connector marked with an R for our right side fuel injector. And then we have, I think it had an L on it on the other one. That has deteriorated away and no longer is labeled. Again, these go on one way. Line up the notches. There's a little notch there and as well as a notch on the other side. So just don't force it in there. Make sure it wants to go in before you give it a little firm click. Same thing for the other one. I kind of had to move over my T-map sensor to make room for the connector, as you guys saw. That should give it the clearance. Pop her in there. Okay, we're seated on all connectors. Next we're gonna need a 5/8 wrench and also a T45 bit. Time to get our cylinder head bracket bolts back in there. It's a little stabilizer link. I am going to use some Loctite as well, just the blue, nothing crazy. So these bolts, they'll get torqued down to 17 to 24 foot-pounds, if you guys are curious. Don't forget your stabilizer mounting bolt as well. A little drop of blue Loctite on there. We're just gonna get everything finger tight and then go around and torque them on down. Fortunately, I'm not gonna be able to fit a torque wrench in this area. I'm just gonna use my best judgment as well. 18 to 24 foot-pounds. I'm gonna start with the head mounting bolts first, and then I'm gonna move on to the stabilizer link mounting bolts. T45 for these fancy bolts up top. Let's get the ignition coil back on here. Just dug out this connector. We're gonna finagle this thing back on. I found it easiest to kind of keep this side a little loose. That way you can rotate it as needed. Just finagle it on in there. Get it roughly placed. Gotta cut some zip ties, get our ignition free. Again, tucked everything up out of the way for convenience during the repair. Now we're ready for it to come back to us. We gotta remove this clip here. This one will clip into this, so we gotta remove this first. That's when your panel tool comes in handy. What did the last time? Let's see. Yeah, it slides right under there. Gently pry it off. There's the clip I'm talking about. Of course, got to take out this screw as well. That'll line up with the hole in the bracket here. T25. A little bit of Loctite. A lot of bit of Loctite. Got our bolt. Got a little star washer. Put the bolt through the bracket. We're gonna put the star washer on the back side. Attempt to. It's gonna be a little tricky. Call me Butterfingers in high school. Hopefully that doesn't, repeat myself here. Hopefully I can get it started. Oh, excuse my French. Spoke too soon. No worries, no worries. It is under control. Spotted the bolt down here. And looks like the washer is still up here. Sheesh, that was a close one. That was a close one. I get this washer on that mounting bolt right in there. A little screw. Got me crazy, bro. Absolutely crazy. I'm just trying to mount the ignition, that's all. I could easily just, boom, screw that in right there. But I want to get that washer in there. I want to get it factory, you know what I mean? How about some needle nose pliers? A little 90-degree action. We are slid on there. We're balancing. Get our T25 ready. I'm going to put pressure on it here and orientate the ignition. We are winning, baby. It's okay. Bolt started. Looking good. Whew, that was nerve-wracking. It's always easier to take stuff apart than put stuff back together. And as you take something apart, you're like, that's going to suck when I have to put that back together. And that was the point I was at about 1 minute ago. But we have success. We are mounted back to OEM standards with Loctite, I might add. If you're curious, this paper towel was only just in case. I didn't want to drop the screw down, into the rocker box, thus hole here. So just preventing any future mishaps. Okay, moving on. Onward and upward. Might be smart to get this thing connected at this point, because it's just going to get tucked up further and I'll have less access to this connector. Hopefully that's the way it goes, just over that bracket. Seems like it wants to go. If we have to disconnect and relocate, we will. Okay, we're seated correctly. Let's do it. I have a tight squeeze. I got some other harness wire here from my light bar that normally you wouldn't have. This clip lines up with that hole, lines up with that square. Let's get this big clip aligned now. Let's line it up with the hole in the bracket on the other side. Give it a push. Hopefully you're not gonna break it. Don't fold it over. Definitely a tight squeeze, but it'll pop in. Okay, it looks like the ignition is mounted again. And yeah, let's pop on the spark plug wires. Well, I might as well Loctite this other bolt to the bracket on the ignition coil. All sides are created equal. One for you. Looks like I'm missing the spark plug on this side. Uh-oh. Gonna need one of those before I get that wire on there. I am gonna replace the plugs as well. I just want to get this thing, get the first start over with, make sure everything's good. Then I will get some new plugs for her before her next maiden voyage. Why don't you pop on there, you little bastard? Get in your hole, brother. Okay, we're seated on both plugs. Let's get this little arrangement organized here. Locks into the bottom part and also locks into the top. Holding all your wires nice and tight. Let's grab our throttle cable now. Alright, let's get these cables back in order. Be sure that you route them on the inside of your fork here and also on the inside of your brake line. Ask me how I know. Basically had everything done and then I realized, oh crap, I didn't route the cables correctly. So here I am, pulled everything back out, and now I'm about to redo what I just did. That's okay. We need the practice anyway. Make sure your grommets are all the way up and out of the way. Slide them all the way up by the adjustment nuts. Top cable is the one with the spring, FYI. Make sure to go inside your zip ties as well right here, factory zip ties. You can do one at a time and situate them after. It really doesn't matter, just get them in there. So let's go on ahead and route our rear cable. It's going to be your pull cable on the back side here. A little while back I did a video on how to adjust your throttle cable. I'll link that right above. So we got the bottom cable going in the bottom little port there on your throttle body. And then the cable with the spring, gonna route up on this one. Gonna go in there. I'm gonna find our home for this. That. We're gonna have a lot of slack until we tighten up the adjustment nuts up above. But in a nutshell, that's how you route your cables correctly the second time. Here we are. We are at the adjustment nuts here. We have the adjustment for our bottom cable at 17.3 millimeters and also our adjustment for the top cable 10.3 millimeters. So we're gonna get this set back exactly how it was and see how it feels. Zeroed out the caliper. Now we're doing 17.3 millimeters. So we're gonna have to open the gap, open the gap, open the gap, open the gap. Quite a bit. And as you do this, it'll start tightening the cable and you'll get less slack down at your throttle body. Inside edge on both ends. 17.4, we're getting there. 17.3, tighten that nut up, kind of lock it in for a minute. Now let's adjust the top one. 10.3 we're looking for on that one. All right, we're basically there on the top. Okay, we're still not springing back. So some fine tuning is needed. All right, got that snap back that we're looking for. My adjustment's a little different from the original one before I loosened them up when I started taking this thing apart. I noticed the cable itself had like a little tweak in it, like a little kink. So after I straightened that out, it's flowing a little better and then we're getting that snap back. So it did take a little finessing, a little tweaking to kind of get it straight again. And I also used a little bit of lubrication, little liquid wrench in here. Let me see what my final numbers are here. So we got the bottom cable sitting at about 13.1. We got the top one at 9.5. One quick note and one thing to look out for is to make sure that your throttle behaves when turned all the way left and when turned all the way right. You don't want anything to be putting more tension on the cables and maybe potentially you wouldn't get that snapback that you were looking for. So make sure your cable, behaves in all directions. I'm just gonna tighten up the 8mm nuts or 5/16 nuts, whatever you got, they will work. Need 2 of them, tighten those things back up. Tighten this lock nut back up, that way this adjustment cannot move. Do a little double action here. Do it. Perfecto. Nada más. After you finalize everything, lock it all in. Just give it a good snap back to reality. All directions. Oops, just gotta bang that handlebar off there. Okay. Now let's move on. All right, next step. You guys probably guessed it. We're gonna put the intake back on. Gonna get the backing plate mounted up. Got my RLNS Big Sucker Stage 1 air cleaner. This is gonna be the backing plate for it. Again, everything used is linked down below. So there's the part number right down there. So mine had 2 gaskets on there. Looks like we have a metal one and also a fiber gasket. So it's showing that the metal one goes down first, then the fiber on top of that. So something like that, line up your holes. I found it easiest to get your studs ready, these little spacers. And we're gonna actually start the screws, these three here. Get those started, and then we're gonna add the breather bolts after that. Again, we have some blue Loctite on each of these studs here. So this helps align the gasket as you put it in. It's easier to look down on it as you line it up here. So let's at least get one of these started here. Then we'll align the other holes to the gasket. Maybe use a little pick to get everything aligned here. Some pressure on it, line it up. Next we can install our 5/16 breather bolts. May take a little bit of tweaking to get it lined up. You may have to kind of loosen up the studs a little bit to get your breather bolts aligned properly. At least that's what I had to do. Torque down the 3 studs there. There's your specs. Take them or leave them. I'm not getting too technical on the torque settings on this. Doing the Guten tight, the German torque setting of Guten tight. Got our 5/32 Allen head bolts to hold this filter on. Little Loctite, little blue Loctite on there. Just a dab will do ya. Again, I'm just using my best judgment on this. For the air filter assembly, last but not least, gotta put that cover on. Drop a Loctite on the 3/16 bolt here. Slap her back on. We are golden, baby. She's definitely looking complete again. She's coming back together. Oops. Got the battery on the trickle charger. Don't want to be let down when I go to start it up and the battery's dead, so got that baby trickling. Perhaps one day we'll get this thing restarted, back on the road. We're getting close. We're getting real close.